In a world brimming with countless Metroidvanias and Souls-likes, it's surprising that a standout presentation alone can be enough to warrant attention. 2021's Ender Lilies demonstrated that concept tenfold with a vibrant anime-like art style that contrasted strongly with the typical fantasy depictions fans were accustomed to. And while Ender Lilies turned out to be charismatically grim, its smooth gameplay and creative Metroidvania elements made it a beloved entry in the genre. Now, we're seeing the team back at it again with Ender Magnolia, a standalone follow-up featuring a new protagonist and setting. Considering my love for the original release, I was eager to dive into this sequel, and it delivered triumphantly. Ender Magnolia takes place in the Land of Fumes, a region that once thrived on magic to drive its progress. Homunculi were a core symbol of the prosperity, but the titular fumes became toxic at some point, turning these artificial creatures into irrational threats. Years after this tragedy, the protagonist Lilac awakens. She suffers from amnesia, but soon learns she possesses the capabilities of an attuner, one who can save the deranged homunculi. Armed with this new power, Lilac sets out to discover the truths about herself and the world she now finds in turmoil. What stands out the most about Ender Magnolia compared to Ender Lilies is its tone and narrative. In Ender Lilies, the protagonist was silent, and while the story was certainly there, it was never constantly emphasized. Ender Magnolia retains some elements of ambiguity, however its plot is communicated far more directly, featuring a speaking protagonist with clearly defined goals and personality. Additionally, there are plenty of interactable NPCs, crafting a distinct atmosphere that diehard fans of the original might not immediately warm up to. This sequel also establishes a stronger sense of community among its cast. There's a genuine effort to build relationships between Lilac and her allies, beyond simply sharing the same world, that is. Outside of a main story, these bonds are showcased through optional exchanges at rest points where the characters discuss all sorts of topics, from core plot details to personal histories. There's quite a bit to take in, and it adds another layer to the experience. Personally, as someone who isn't especially fond of the vague storytelling often found in Souls-like games, Ender Magnolia was much more of my style. Even if I wouldn't call it a gripping masterclass, the sharper focus on character and narrative kept me more invested in my progression than in Ender Lilies, where I was primarily in it for just the gameplay. Lilac and the homunculi she gathers along the way are all pretty endearing, although some members of the supporting cast come across as obligatory to the plot and nothing else. Still, as mentioned earlier, fans of the original's more cryptic storytelling may not appreciate the shift. If you belong to that crowd, you'll have to be open to these changes. When it comes to gameplay, Ender Magnolia is largely similar to its predecessor, but it feels more polished. For those entirely new to the series, the protagonist here wield other beings in combat. In Lilac's case, she uses homunculi, which can fulfill both explorative and combative roles. There's plenty of variety depending on your playstyle. For example, players who enjoy action gameplay might prefer manual abilities that require precise timing to use effectively. Meanwhile, newcomers, or those who want to focus on one homunculi at a time, can opt for the type that passively damage enemies. Given that you can equip multiple homunculi simultaneously and each can be upgraded into variants, there's a satisfying degree of customization that never feels overwhelming. Lilac herself can also equip relics, totems, and bracelets, which are essentially pieces of gear that offer benefits related to stats or other gameplay elements. In simple terms, there are countless ways to approach each encounter, and the steady stream of rewards you find encourages you to rethink your build regularly. I especially enjoyed how the game sometimes focuses on status elements, making certain areas and boss fights more compelling when you switch up your approach. Moreover, Ender Magnolia offers seamless movement that rewards quick reflexes, even letting you cancel out of a healing animation halfway through. This design choice pairs perfectly with the game's overall swiftness. While it demands a solid understanding of enemy behaviors, it also pushes you to react instantly, which is especially vital in group encounters. Generally speaking, the bosses here are on par with Ender Lilies in terms of polish and the variety of moves they employ. Each confrontation is exciting to learn, though none stand out exceptionally difficult. That might be the concern if not for the fact that you can customize the game's stats to your liking, including a preset hard mode if you need it. These options cater to both newcomers and hardcore veterans, which is a welcome move. given that many games tend to prioritize accessibility at the expense of a real challenge. Exploration forms the other primary pillar of Ender Magnolia's appeal, though it comes with a slight downside. As you progress, Lilac bonds with more homunculi, some of which grant movement abilities that open previously inaccessible areas. This is all typical Metroidvania fare, finding ways to break weak ground with a shockwave, using a double jump, or clinging to walls. However, these abilities are more or less lifted directly from Ender Lilies. Granted, their applications in Ender Magnolia are more consistently satisfying than its predecessor, which oftentimes fluctuated in quality. Yet the lack of fresh mechanics does make this sequel feel more like a cautious evolution than a bold step forward. Even so, I'm not entirely disappointed. The thrill of fully completing areas is cathartic, and this entry features some clever, satisfying puzzles that demand genuine thought without requiring massive leaps in skill. A significant improvement over Ender Lilies, if I should say so. Still, I was hoping for a bit more novelty in the toolkit. Following the precedent set by its predecessor, Ender Magnolia boasts sublime art direction. Despite the tone's divergence from Ender Lilies, there is a confronting nostalgia in the similar visual style, ensuring that the sequel maintains a coherent identity. The soundtrack is equally remarkable, featuring a near-like melodic chanting that underscores the weight of a collapsing world. As a side note, while the marketing mentions a 35-hour playtime, I only ended up playing 20 hours to see and do everything, so you should anticipate a length compared to Ender Lilies. For as early as we are in 2025, Ender Magnolia already stands out as a potential all-time great and could easily be the cream of this year's crop. Though I did run into a few minor performance hiccups related to frame rate, and the gameplay can sometimes feel more of the same, the overall polish is undeniable. With the brilliant boss battles and marvelously designed Metroidvania exploration, this sequel is a well-realized adventure that's hard to put down once you start completing everything it has to offer. If you're a fan of either genre, Ender Magnolia is a must-play. Noisy Pixel is giving Ender Magnolia a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.